Hail, Flame here, and welcome to the FlameHisWorld commentary of Team Sonic Racing, which is the third of Sumo Digital's little Sonic Racing spin-off series they've been doing. Because to start with, Sumo made Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, which is a bit of a mouthful. I had to have a bit of a run-up to that one, you probably could tell. But that was basically a very by-the-numbers kart racer kind of game. If you've played Mario Kart, if you've played Crash Team Racing, anything like that, you basically know what the gist is for the first game. It's a bit safe. Like, I remember it being a decent enough game, but I'd be lying if I said that I couldn't remember any particular highlights from it. I do remember it just being a bit on the generic side. But a few years later, they followed that up with a sequel called Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, which dropped the and Sega part, which made its name simultaneously more and less confusing. But, you know, that enhanced the main gameplay a fair bit, because not only did they polish a few things around, make a few really cool tracks, they also added the gimmick of your transforming car. Because sometimes you would be driving along a track and you'd go through a certain gate and your car would turn into a boat and you'd drive along a water section for a while, or it would turn into a plane and you would fly through the air and have to dodge obstacles that are just in the sky. And it was never like a huge game changer, but it was enough to make the tracks feel a little bit more unique, and you would sort of go through slightly different sections, like a water section or a air section in later laps in levels, just to keep them fresh. Team Sonic Racing does away with a lot of this. Team Sonic Racing does not have transforming karts, and Team Sonic Racing does not have the extended cast of Sega characters. So this is purely a Sonic game. So, like with the last couple of Mario Kart games I've done on the channel before, I am going to be playing this live, so this could go any way, basically, and I'm going to be playing through the Grand Prix mode, particularly the Team Grand Prix, because this game does have a standard Grand Prix, as you see there, but it's the team mode that's the new main gimmick for TSR, so that's really the part that I want to focus on for this playthrough. I may end up showing off some standard stuff later down the line, but for now, let's just do our team races, and I can blame my teammates if it all goes tits up. And yes, I am playing on expert, because it's basically the intended difficulty, at least from what I can tell. At least for the Grand Prix modes. In story mode, it's a whole different story, but I'm sure I'll get into that. Let's get into the first Grand Prix. And I'm going to make a point of showing off some different characters throughout the playthrough. Obviously, you can see everyone's favourite, Zavok, made it in. But I'm not going to start with him. Let's just start off with Sonic, and I think I'm going to change that disaster of a paint job that I tried to make. Let's put it back to the default one. There we go. And hopefully this won't be too much of a mess, though, you know, it is a racing game. I am playing live, and there are CPUs that could let me down on my team. We've got Vector on the team, and we've got Blaze on the team. Blaze is kind of competent. Vector is the, you know, failed detective kind of guy. This does have the same boost at the start mechanic that All-Stars Racing Transforming does. So if you're familiar with timing that, it's a similar kind of deal here. I'm very hit and miss as to whether I'm able to reliably set it off. But basically the way this game's team mechanic works is that you've got the two characters you're teamed up with, and ultimately you want to collect points by your placing as a team. So you can do that just by getting the three highest positions ideally, but you can kind of help each other out. Like, I didn't want that bomb wisp there, so I just pushed the B button and I passed it on to, I think that was Blaze who picked it up there. So, like, she can hopefully make better use of it than I would have. Sometimes it is a bit of a gamble as to whether your CPU teammates will use the items responsibly, whether it will help them, and whether they'll be team players or not. Because ultimately what I've found, and I don't know if this is how it's specifically set up to work, but if you're consistently passing items to them, they tend to do better. Not always, but that seems to be the way to get lucky with them. As for where they end up placing, you kind of want to do most of the heavy lifting yourself if you can, because you have a real brain, whereas they have mere AI brains. And it's quite frustrating in the story mode when there's certain tracks that you need to do well at to succeed and then continue on to the next track, but you're doing your best, but then you got your teammates dragging you down. Doesn't happen too often, but I did have a few moments in the story mode where it did. And also the story mode's difficulty I personally find to be completely off whack. Like, I'm playing on expert mode here and I'm having basically no difficulty whatsoever. In the story mode I have a lot of trouble, to the point where there were some tracks I had to drop down to normal for. I got overtaken by Metal Sonic at the last second there, so disregard me saying I was having no trouble at all in this race. But I don't know, it just feels balanced differently in the GPs to how it is in the main story. But if you see here, despite the fact that none of my team made first, because the three of us had second, third and fourth, it's added up and we're just a little bit above Metal Sonic's team. So as long as I keep this up, with any luck I will be able to bluff my way through. Of course, if I lose after talking about how I was getting through with no trouble whatsoever, I will absolutely have egg in my face, but you know, it's part of the fun of just playing the game. And of course we do have the obligatory Seaside Hill appearance. It's not a Sonic spin-off without one. And this music you're hearing got another Toot Toot Sonic Warrior remix, you know, Sonic Can Do Anything from Sonic CD. And this mashes in a little bit of Supersonic Racing at one point as well. That is the game's ultimate strength in my eyes. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I'm very divided on, I should say, but the music is just across the board fantastic. It's Jun Senoue in charge of the music again in this game, and it shows. It's like his typical style, but he's also got a lot of other contributors, like T-Lopes does a couple of songs, there's the Hyper Potions guys doing some songs. There's a few other people as well showing up on the soundtrack, which it adds a bit of variety, and on the whole it is just a fantastic soundtrack. Obviously during the opening I was talking over the main theme, Greenlight Ride, which is the new Crush 40 song for this game, which I'm so happy Crush 40 are back. Crush 40 are my favourite band, fucking love Crush 40. And Greenlight Ride, it might not have been an amazing blow me away on the first listen kind of song, but the more I listen to it, the more hype it gets me. Like, it's not quite a revving up when it comes to racing game music, but it's pretty up there. Now, this mechanic we've got here, Ultimate, the Team Ultimate. This is basically your All-Star mode if you're thinking in terms of All-Stars Racing Transformed. As long as you work together as a team, usually by later on in the second lap or the start of third lap, you'll get that build up and you can just blast through everything. It's a little bit OP. In fact, during parts of the story mode it is very OP. If another team gets their ultimate in the third lap in story mode, you've lost, and that is another reason why I think the balance is completely off whack in story. But when you're just playing through the Grand Prix right now, it is very satisfying to pull it off and to just have your way against the other teams. But yeah, let's get us on to the next race. And coming up here, we do have another Sonic Heroes representation. Right after Seaside Hill, we have the bloody bingo level, which I don't like Sonic Heroes. If I can avoid being reminded of Sonic Heroes' existence, I will absolutely go out of my way to avoid being reminded of Sonic Heroes' existence. But there I am at the start there, taking advantage of the other team mechanics, which you can boost yourself along by riding your teammates' slipstreams. Don't know how that physically works, in that you can't ride your enemy's slipstreams. That's not quite how a slipstream works, but you know, it's another team mechanic, and it's also something else that can help you build up your team meter. So if you're close to your teammate, then maybe let them get ahead a little bit and then use that to slingshot yourself ahead. It does help out in the long run, and you never know when you might need that ultimate boost. Now, I will say they do have a variety of different pinball levels in this game, because they do reuse the main arenas to make new tracks from. Most of the time when they're doing that, like, the levels are distinct enough that it feels like a different track, but because this is so visually loud, because this is such a mess visually, they all really just blend together to me. I really don't like the casino park and bingo highway aesthetic from Heroes. I will say, to this game's credit, it is much more muted. It's not quite as saturated as it was in Heroes. So you don't have to worry about your eyes being completely murdered. It's just still a little bit on the generic side. It's like the bingo equivalent of Seaside Hill. Because, you know, you got your generic seaside level, and then you got your generic casino level. Like, I would much rather be driving through Casino Night, or even Carnival Night, and I don't really like Carnival Night from 3K, but that's more visually unique than fucking Casino Park. I guess this is a fair bit of my distaste towards Heroes on the whole, because I really do not like Heroes. It's not even an awful unplayable game, it's just a very bland game. I guess I don't want to just put in the same shit broken tier, because it's not broken, it's a functional Sonic game. So it's kind of unfair to be comparing it to like 06 or Rise of Lyric in that respect. But in terms of the games I have enjoyment from playing, you know, I would take a lot of Sonic games, even the really buggy broken ones, over Heroes. But, you know, that's its own conversation. I still do think it's disappointing that out of all the Heroes picks, they do always go with Seaside Hill and Casino Park, though, for these kind of things. Because Heroes, for all I can say about it, they do have some interesting themes, like driving around fucking, you know, the castle levels. That'd be pretty sick. And so would, what other ones would there be? Like Frog Forest. That'd make for a more interesting kind of, you know, forest, jungle, hill area. I suppose the reason why they haven't got Hang Castle or Mystic Mansion in this game is because they have Sandopolis here, which I was so surprised to see this, because they don't acknowledge Sandopolis much, which for good reason, because it's arguably the weakest 3K level, but they've done it so well in this game. Like, I absolutely love this track's look, and I also love this musical remix. Again, like, the music is the strength of Team Sonic Racing. Well done, mate. Driving right off the track. But music is the strength, and this was one of the songs they teased on the YouTube channel before the game came out. And when I saw not only was there going to be a Sandopolis remix, but the Sandopolis track would also have a cameo from King Boom Boo from Sonic Adventure 2, like we saw. That did give me a lot of hope for the game, because I was very worried that it would be entirely safe picks. Because again, modern Sonic spin-off, that's what they tend to do. And we've seen there are safe picks. We've seen that there's Seaside Hill and Casino Park. But you know, Sandopolis, that's a bit of a deep cut by today's standards. As a track, it's fun to race through. There's like a few fun gimmicks. There's fuck you, Tails. You're Sonic's best friends, but you know, when you're on the track, you gotta, what the fuck? Like, The collision can be a little bit funky in this, but I don't think I've seen that. I'm going to use this boost because I think I need it to recover myself. Forgot where I was even going, but I have never drove off this track before, but I go to record and I've drove off it twice. Fucking hell. Nature of the live playthrough, I guess, but I've completely lost where I was going with my train of thought. I think I was talking about the picks that they went with. Sandopolis wasn't one I was expecting. I know it's a bit of a safer one compared to like picking a Sonic 3 level. They're very shy about acknowledging Sonic 3, and I know there's a lot of talk about that possibly being a music licensing thing, you know, with like the whole Michael Jackson deal and whatnot. I would think they'd find a way around that, like even if they just, you know, made new music. A lot of people would be upset that it's not the original songs, but at least they'd be able to reuse the tracks. I don't know, maybe they just are reasons beyond that that we don't know about. I try not to assume malice when it comes to these sort of things, and there probably are third-party reasons. But man, I need to pick myself up here. I'm fucking falling behind, and especially Vector there. I should send some items back. I know the burst wisp there isn't gonna help him out of buying that much, and that's probably why he didn't take it, but still. The drift works quite similarly to how it did in All Stars Racing Transformed as well. So you just hold on to it as you go round, and it builds up in stages the longer your hold you drift for. I want to try and concentrate and send some items back if I can, because I'm doing alright. I'm not doing well given, you know, I was in second for too long, and they have a team thing, so I've basically lost. That block thing, the block wisp, it's not the block wisp, it's not cube, but whatever the ground one is, I forget the name of it. That is basically a reimagination of the bees from All Stars Racing Transformed. One of my examples of how the wisps work better than a lot of Mario Kart things. Not so much in this game, which I'll get into, but like when it was used in All Stars Racing Transformed, because it is still an item that with skill you can avoid most of the time. Not always, but most of the time. Whereas like a blue shell, if a blue shell hits you, you're fucked. Same with like a red shell or a green shell, but I think I'll probably end up talking about that more in a later part, given with or one. I just about won that last one there because they were after me, but yeah. Join me next time where I'll be going on to the second Grand Prix of Team Sonic Racing, and hopefully my commentary won't be quite a scatshot. See you then.